I have never needed to worry about enrollments here. Never. And I really do feel that that's partly that.
Welcome back to the Profitable Preschool Podcast, where we speak with visionary childcare CEOs who are building centers with staying power. I'm your host, Alexis Lewis, CPA and founder of Little Ledgers. Today's guest is an inspiring childcare center owner whose journey reflects the 4 core pillars that we believe every leader should live by: their body, their being, their beliefs, and of course, their business. Today's guest is Payne, founder of 15 Ave North Learning Academy in Nashville. With a master's from Vanderbilt and a background in educational leadership, she built a school focused on personalized learning and student success. Penny's all about heart, impact, and excellence, and I can't wait for you to hear her story. So welcome, Penny. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
Good. Glad to have you. So one thing I've learned about working closely with childcare leaders is that most started their centers from a place of deep passion and heart and care and a mission, whether it was solving like a community need or answering a personal calling. Tell us what your journey into early childhood education was like. Was there like a personal moment that made you say, like, this is where I'm meant to be?
Yes, it's a little of both. One, I started out as a teacher myself in a classroom. And working as a teacher can be very, very hard because you're stuck in that room 8 to 9 hours. You get a few bathroom breaks, things like that. So I wanted to be that compassionate leader that was there for the staff and there for the families at the same time. And so my center, we run it more as a family-orientated school so that we have the best of both worlds. I'm willing to go in a classroom. I'm willing to help out. I'm willing to do all those kind of things and make teachers feel valued. I want teachers and families to feel valued because no one wants to work 8, 9 hours a day just for a paycheck. Right.
That is true. And I think it's important that you had that focus on kind of family centeredness where we're all working together. We're all in this together, not just that it's kind of a top down approach. It's like, we're all in this together. I'm willing to get on the floor and read books or do whatever needs to be done in the classroom, and also take care of the leadership part. So that's important.
That's right.
That's good. So did you see that, like, in your, I guess, before starting your center, did you see that was an issue in other places that you had worked prior to?
Oh, definitely. I worked at one center here in Nashville, and I worked there for 5.5 years. And I think I seen the director in my classroom maybe 3 times.
Wow.
That whole time. And my thing is how can you evaluate an employee if you're never in that classroom and don't know what they're really doing? And you should feel valued about what they are doing and passionate enough about what they are doing to see what they're doing, because that gives them, achievement. Also, they feel valued when you come in there and you're like, oh, I love this idea, and things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, that encouragement goes a long way. And like you said, how do you evaluate if you haven't seen what's actually happening on a day-to-day in the classroom?
Yep.
Right. That's a good point. Okay, good deal. So in my work, I've often heard that the first year in owning a center is kind of a mixture or equal parts of chaos and growth. Looking back at your first year, what challenges really kind of shaped you as a leader?
I've been in childcare for a long, long time. So I've been in it as a teacher. I used to be a center director somewhere else. Owning a center and being a director are 2 different things. It really, really is. But I think the most thing that was very challenging for me was financial. Just, because you think coming in here, oh, it's easy. All you're doing is paperwork, enrolling kids, doing this, doing that. No. You got to pay bills. You got to do a lot of things. You got to have payroll. You got to pay payroll taxes. So it's not easy. And I think that is the main thing for me was the financial aspect of it. Yeah. Okay. I struggled the first year. I really, really struggled. I'm not going to lie.
That's fair. That's fair. And thank you for being transparent and just open about that, because I think a lot of times people feel a little bit of maybe even shame around their finances when they're getting started, because they feel like they should have known something. And it's like, this is your first year in owning this business and running it in this way. You're going to learn over time. You're going to fix those mistakes that you make the first time and kind of adjust things as you go.
Yep.
So
it's just like a bike. You're going to fall down. You just got to get back on it.
Exactly. It's going to hurt. And it's going to hurt a little bit
Yes.
when that happens. Absolutely.
Yep.
And I think it's important for newer center owners to know that they're not going to have it all figured out at one time. Yes, you've got 20 or 80 students enrolled, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the finances are going to be tight initially.
Right.
Makes sense. Okay. So, at Little Ledgers, we always talk about the money follows the mission. What's the why behind you and your mission in your center?
The why behind mine. Well, I want to be able to employ people and empower people to be able to live financially out in the world. And I also want to be able to have a center where we aren't charging an arm and a leg for the parents to come here, and that they have bills they have to pay too, and I want it, as long as the bills here are getting paid, I can pay my bills at home. Everybody's getting paid a good wage, and that I'm comfortable. I'm not about taking vacations. I'm not about doing all that kind of stuff. It will come. That's my why. I want to make sure that everybody has a say and a place of value here. That's
great. It sounds like your style of leadership, just from talking to you in this first couple minutes, it seems like you're in the people business.
Yes.
It's like the finances will come, the money will come, the vacations will come, but I'm putting the people first. And those people include the parents, the kids, obviously, but also my staff. And making sure that they're well compensated so that they can have a sustainable life and financial health for themselves.
Yes, because if they are well taken care of, they're going to make sure this business is well taken care of. Yes.
Absolutely. And I think that also plays into how they can show up for work. If you're financially stressed, it's hard to have a good attitude and a good morning when you come into work. And kids are loud and they're moody sometimes.
Yes.
And so bringing the right energy into the building makes all the difference for how that goes. And if you're financially stressed and having to spend your time that way, that can be difficult. So it sounds like that's working well for you.
Yes.
Good deal. Good. Well, let's talk about the part of leadership that a lot of times we don't see. It's kind of behind the scenes, the physical demands. Like I was saying, sometimes kids are loud and they're kind of moody. Aren't we all? But if I guess I've seen firsthand how some owners care for their body, for their and it allows them to lead with more clarity, with more calm, with more confidence. What routines or rituals, if you will, do you have that help you to stay energized, to stay physically grounded while still running your center and being kind of there on a day-to-day basis?
I am one of the things that I feel like I'm OCD, I'm very organized. Everything around me is very organized, because if it's not, then I'm stressed. And that kind of stuff. So if I maintain that, I have less stress levels. One of the other things I do is, if I feel like I'm getting stressed, now this may sound weird, I will go out and play with some of the kids, because that tends to work. And I really don't, to be honest with you, a lot of times I don't have a lot of stress here at work. I have kids that will literally come in the morning and they'll run in my office and give me a hug. So I guess I don't have time to be stressed, because they're, all that love and everything. There are some times where, I'm not going to lie, it can be a very stressful job. And so there are times where even my daughter will say, "Oh, you're on it today," and that kind of stuff. And when they say that, you do have to sit back and you're like, okay, what can I do to get out of this mode? Mm-hmm. So you just have to step back, walk out of the office, take your Mufasa moment, and then move on.
And come
Yeah.
back to it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. That's good. I mean, being organized, especially in this business, when you've got licensing on one end, tax authorities on the other end, employees
Mm-hmm.
and payroll on the other end.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not
Mm-hmm.
organized, that I can imagine that would create a lot of stress. So knowing that
Yeah.
you've got that organizational structure
Mm-hmm.
kind of set up is really, really good. And then, like you
Right.
said, going and playing with the kids, it's like they have so much energy, and kids are so kind and just most of the time, and so just like joyful, and they love to play and run. It kind of brings that childhood joy back out of you, and kind of lets the stress melt
Yes.
away.
Yes. My office is right next to a classroom. So I can hear what they say. And sometimes I'm just in here laughing because of I could write a book at some of the things they're saying, So that kind of helps keep some of the stress level down.
Yes, absolutely. Sometimes it's like they learn certain words or phrases and then they use them in context, but it's hilarious to hear it from a 3-year-old,
Yes.
So yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. So have you ever hit a season, or maybe it's not even a full season, but maybe a month or a time of burnout or exhaustion where you had to kind of reclaim your energy while still showing up for your team?
I'm going to say yes. That was probably a few years ago. We had COVID and that. Now, COVID didn't hit us too bad. We worked through it and that kind of stuff, but just the stress of everything. Of course, we got some grants and things like that. So that really helped us. Grants are gone now.
Yes.
And so we've had to really kind of restructure and do a few different things and okay, well, we don't have that money anymore, which I really didn't count on it because I knew it would disappear.
Right.
But you have to kind of restructure and rethink. And there were a few days where I'm like, you know what, I just don't know if I have it to do anymore. But luckily, to be honest with you, I have a family structure that my family just kept pushing me. You can't, this is your baby. You can't give it up. You can't. Yeah. My director that I have, same thing. She's like, no, you know what? Let's just pray about it. Let's just pray about it. You'll be okay. And that kind of stuff. And I've been able to find that peace again and why I'm here. And that's why I'm still here.
That's good. And I know that post-COVID was hard on so many different businesses, industries, and definitely in this industry because so much money was flooded into it. Like you said, from the grants, workforce retention. Okay, hey, we've got to pay our employees more. We can pay them more because we have to use this for payroll. Well, shucks, now that that's done, we can't take people back down to the pre amount. Yes. So how do we keep that sustainable? But like you said, while also being able to make sure that the parents aren't having to, pay the equivalent of a mortgage, if you will, on their just to have their children in a place on a day-to-day basis.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah, it's definitely a balancing act for sure. I always say that your health is part of your profit plan. What's one way that you kind of prioritize your physical well-being into your kind of day-to-day leadership? That might be something like, tea in the morning. It could be whatever your thing is. What does that look like for you?
My coffee every day. I bring a cup of, well, it's not really a coffee, it's a carafe of coffee every day. And I will literally sip on that all day long. In that kind of stuff. That is just my go-to. I make sure that I have lunch every day because that's my time. That is just my time, whether it's right here at my desk or what, that is my time to just kind of move back.
Yeah.
And I have more recently in the past year and a half, been more focused on my health because I've told myself if I don't take care of my health, then where will my business be? I got to be healthy and here to have the business. So I've been, focusing on that a lot more.
That's good. That's good to hear. Yeah, that morning jolt of energy from the coffee, and then making sure that you're over time. I think that's important for all business owners to realize is that if we're not taking care of ourselves, then where does that leave our business? Of course, we could hand it off to our kids, but we want to be long and old and very, very gray before that before that has to happen.
Yes,
absolutely. So when when working with clients, we don't just kind of talk about spreadsheets. We talk about like your beliefs and how those play into it. I did hear you say something about making sure that you pray about something.
Mm-hmm.
Your purpose, your identity, your connection with something bigger, on a day to day. That's what fuels the longevity
Mm-hmm.
of the business and of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
How does your faith play into or shape how you lead and make decisions as a business owner?
Well, I do agree that if I didn't have God, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. He has helped me along the way. He's my co-pilot, or my pilot, and I'm the co-pilot. I don't know which one. But I've been through a lot of struggles here in that, and I can definitely say it wasn't just me getting me through it. He's helped. He's opened certain doors or closed certain doors. I have never needed to worry about enrollments here. Never. And I really do feel that that's partly that. I don't go around with my faith on my sleeve and, well, God this, God that, and blah, blah, blah. But I'm not afraid to tell people that, faith is very, very important. And if I have a problem, I will pray about it. He might answer that prayer and he might not answer that prayer. It just depends on when the time is right. And that. So, yeah, I'm very founded in my belief there that God is everything. He is the reason that we're here. And without that faith, I would not be here.
Right. That's so true. And like you said, sometimes it's an answer to the prayer. Sometimes it's the answer we want. Like you said, sometimes it's no answer, but sometimes it's also a no. And it kind of, that no kind of protects us from some things that we may have gotten into that we shouldn't have, or thought was a good idea, but it just long term, we can kind of see that wouldn't have aligned with the plan.
Yeah. And you have to look back and the issue that you're having, is it my issue? Or is it really something that we could do here, or is it just something that I want to do because I feel like it needs to happen, kind of thing?
Right, right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So do you feel that this work that you're doing is part of your life's calling? Like, how does that sense of purpose guide you when things get hard?
I really do feel that it is, because we have a program here. We have a family coach. And so we're not just about childcare. We're here to work with the whole family. Okay. So if we have a family that's having a housing issue, we have a family that's having an issue paying bills, we have a family that's, just struggling with food and stuff, we connect them with our family coach. She then will help them. And so we've actually been able to help people stay housed. We've been able to help people get food. We've been able to help people keep their cars, and things like that. I think it's about showing people you really are mission focused. My mission is to help other people. That's what I'm here for. Mm-hmm. I know it's a business, and I get that it's a business, but we're here to help others, not ourselves. So.
Absolutely. And I think when you help others in that way, I've never heard of the family coach thing, but that is amazing. First of all, let me say that, because and depending on where your center's located, some centers may be in more affluent areas versus others, but regardless of affluency or not, people can go through hard times. You can be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company and lose your job tomorrow. It happens. Like, there's been layoffs all over the place this year. So life happens and people go through hardships. And to hear that one of the businesses that you're working with, where your child is attending on a day-to-day basis for hours on end, is there to help you and help you be able to get back on your feet, or being able to help you to resolve some of those issues, that helps the community. And it also helps to kind of keep that family and that even that child's stress level low, so that there's not trauma associated with the, like you said, being unhoused or that kind of thing.
Yes. I've had a couple families that they'll come to me and they'll say, "You're a godsend. You really helped us more than and it's not just about the families enrolled. I'll do the same thing for my staff. If they're having a car problem, they're having a car payment problem, or their car broke down, I will help pay for that. I don't expect them to pay me back. That's just part of taking care of people. Because at the end of the day, because I have done that, God's going to make sure we're taken care of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And just my financial side of me is wondering, do you set aside a fund for that, if you will? Like, hey, I want to set aside this amount so that it's not just hitting you kind of out of nowhere. You kind of have a savings, if you will, to kind of account for that. Yeah. Okay.
And I don't, if I don't have the money, then I have to say no, but I'll do everything in my power that I don't have to say no, because I just want to help.
Right. Even if it's helping to find resources, like if it's food or something like that, being able to point you in different directions to get some help. That's good. Wow. I love that. And that plays directly into the mission about helping people. It's not just talk. It's not just fancy words on a website, but it's actually something that you're doing and that you've seen produce fruit, if you will, for the families that are working with you. And like you said, even for your staff. And I guess I could assume that that's why you don't have issues with enrollment. You're, on top of the fact that I'm sure people come and go in terms of employees, but if you have an employer who cares about your well-being in that way, I can see where that makes a huge difference.
Yes, it does. Most of my employees have been here a long time, and my families are mostly word of mouth families. So, yeah.
And that just speaks also to the type of person that you are. That's amazing that's part of what you've obviously seen over time and decided to do something about, and to be able to set aside money for it, because that could be your vacation every year,
Right.
I don't know how much it is, and that's not necessarily the point of this, but more so just that, you've decided that this is something that's important and you've gone for it. So I love that.
I had my previous job before I came here. That owner, because I was the director there, she literally would tell my staff, "You need to make sure that you guys are doing better to make more money for me so that I can go on vacations and I can drive my Lexus and I can do this." First of all, you don't tell the staff stuff like that. That is not correct.
Wow.
They shouldn't have to work that hard to make you look good. That's not what this is about. So that was one of my other things that really, when it came to opening a business and opening my own center, I wanted to be that person that wasn't like that. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I brought some of those employees with me, and they will tell me, well, it's like night and day, and yeah.
Oh yeah. The attitude of the owner makes all the difference.
It does. It does. And I just don't feel that as an owner, as a leader, as a supervisor, you shouldn't have to micromanage people either. No one wants to be micromanaged, because if I have to do that, then I might as well just do their job. I want this to be a place of fun, a good atmosphere. Everybody wants to be here.
Right. Absolutely. And it sounds like if you don't have to micromanage, that means you're training well and you're hiring well. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yes. Yes, definitely. Definitely.
For sure. So one of the things we often talk about is business growth, right? But rarely talk about how that intersects between the personal relationships that we have. But I believe you can have both successful business and also connected, fulfilling relationships. And I work with my clients often with that in mind. How do you stay connected to your family, to your loved ones, while still running a business like this on a day-to-day basis?
Well, my family coach is my daughter.
Oh, nice. Even better. Okay.
Yes. And my maintenance man is my husband.
Okay.
So, and yeah, we all talk about it. They'll come and help out. They'll, in that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's just very important. And they're able to see what I'm doing and how important it is. 'Cause they know I hate the word daycare. I cannot stand the word daycare. Because this is not a daycare and we are not babysitters, and that kind of stuff. They're educators, they're teachers. You either call them one of those, and that kind of stuff. So if any one of them, my son will tease me every once in a while and he'll say, oh, just babysitting. And I'm like, excuse me, remember, I brought you in the world. I can take you out. And that kind of stuff. He says, no, I know how important it is, and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it has helped them also because I've lived my dream. I'm living my dream. I've showed my children how important it is, and they're now living their dreams because they know they can do it. I've come from way down the line and I've made it happen. I've struggled in that, but I kept going, and they know that they can do it too.
Absolutely. And that's legacy. That's exactly what that is. And legacy doesn't always have to be inheritance financially. Sometimes it's the grit that it takes to get through something, and watching mom be able to do that. And watching, like you said, watching you live your dream and working with you within your business as maintenance, as the family coach, those sort of things, giving them opportunities even within the family is really great. And I know some people have a hard time trusting family members or loved ones within their business because they feel like that they'll take advantage because they've been given the opportunity as opposed to quote unquote earning it, if you would. Have you had any challenges with that at all?
I have not. I've been very fortunate. And, we came from one of the things and the reasons I do what I do too is because some of our families that are in poverty and some of our families that are very low income, I've been there. I know what it's like. I know what it's like to struggle. And my kids will even say that to this day. Remember when we would go to the store and didn't know if we had enough money to do this or do that, and stuff like that. And so they seen what the struggle is. And so they are very apt not to take advantage of it. In that, and they're very, very loyal. They're very helpful. If they see that I'm struggling, they'll even ask, what can I do to help? Is there something you need me to do? Yeah. So it's really nice.
And that shows too that you've built that trust, and that they trust you, and that you've been able to build that trust also with them to be able to trust that they're doing well by you and by the families that you guys support.
Right. And another thing, I'm not big on failure. I'm a person that you just keep plugging it away until you get there. And they know that. And so they're like that too. They're determined. They're very, very determined. And my children have all three of them. They're very successful. They're not rich, but they're successful because they know what they need to do to get the job done.
Absolutely. And success isn't always just financial, like you said about being rich. Sometimes it's like, how much of an impact have I had wherever it is that I am? How many families have I been able to impact? How many people? It doesn't have necessarily families, but how many people have I been able to impact? How have I made change in a good way? So that success doesn't always necessarily translate financially, but you're able to do what you need to do, and knowing that God is always going to provide, especially when you're putting out in that way.
Yep.
That's great. Has there been a key supporter, if you will, in your journey? Someone who helped you, get going or keep going, or reminded you kind of who you are? I know you kind of talked about your kids a little bit there.
I think that would be my husband. My husband has been my rock. He's been there for me. If I ever had that moment where I'm just like, and I just don't feel like I can do this, he just always brings me back to that little area I need to be, like, look how far you've come. Look at what your family said you would never accomplish, and stuff like that. And look at everything you've done. And every once in a while he'll sit back and he says, do you ever just want to call him and say, hey, look what I have now. I have a master's degree, or I have my own business, and things like that. So you didn't think I would be anything, but here I am. And I said, no, I don't want to gloat, but he's been my rock.
That's amazing. It's amazing to have that kind of support from the person and the people closest to you. You know, the people that you live with. Like you said, your children, your husband. To have that kind of support coming home and them realizing kind of some days are long, some days are hard, and I might sound like I want to give up today, but you're able to give me that boost to get me to tomorrow.
Yes. Yep. Because they'll be like, well, what are you going to do? I mean, you're not going to be happy. My husband will tell me that you're not going to be happy going in a classroom by yourself. Anyway, you're meant to lead. You're meant to be a boss.
Yes. So you love that person to like kid to adult interaction ever so often, but you're meant to lead the team.
Yes. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. And that's good to know about yourself too.
Yeah. Because that way I know it's done right. I don't have to worry,
Yep. Absolutely. Love that. So now, Penny, let's talk about the business itself. So profit doesn't always happen by accident. And the owners that I work with often reach kind of a turning point where they realize that they need more than just the passion, right? They need processes, which you kind of spoke to a little bit earlier. So what was kind of a turning point in your center's growth where you knew that you were kind of leveling up from, owner or startup to kind of CEO?
Oh, wow. When I started seeing the big dollars come in, you know what I mean? When you're making more than just $100 here and there, you're making more than that. And you're like, wow, this is true. You can make it, and that because I never dreamed to be able to make what I make here in that kind of stuff. And when you put it into dollar signs, you're just like, oh my gosh. I never knew, that kind of money was out there like that. Yeah.
Okay. So when the big dollars started rolling in, that's kind of when you knew like that was a turning point. Like, okay, this is a real business.
Yes. And I need to really watch my P's and Q's. Yeah.
Good deal. So, one thing that I help clients to do is to untangle kind of the chaos of systems, if you will, from payroll to like enrollment and staffing and that kind of thing. What's been a challenging area for you to systemize? I know you said you're very organized. So maybe how did you navigate that challenge and where are you now with it?
To be honest with you, I've never really had that challenge. And part of that, and I'll let you know why.
Okay.
My last job that I had, before I had that job, I was a teacher in a classroom. And so they needed a director. They hired me. She needed a director that was organized in that, because when it came to like the food program, she lost lots of money because it wasn't being done. The attendance wasn't being done. So like I think it was like 3 months of the food program, she didn't get paid for that.
Ooh.
And then we also get, it's called DHS certificates, vouchers for childcare. They weren't doing the attendance right on that. So she lost money, plus had to pay money back. Well, when I got the job, I'm like, oh no, this is never going to happen on my watch.
Right.
Because you can't run a business like that. You really, really can't. And so when I came over here, started my own business, no one is doing my financials like that. I'm doing it because that way I know that it's done correctly and done right. So that's kind of how I've been. At first, I had to do it all. I had to make sure it was all done right. Lately, I've been able to delegate a little bit more. But we, like for payroll, I have a payroll company that does that. So then, of course, they do all my tax stuff and all that for me. So I don't have to do any of that. So that's nice. My enrollments and my hiring, I do that, but it's not hard the way I do it. It's an easy process.
Gotcha.
So I try to make sure everything that we do here flows, because we don't have time for a hiccup in between.
Got it. Can you give a specific example about something that you systemized that you're willing to share that has made your process flow so smoothly?
give me an example, because I think I know what you're meaning.
It could be anything from a software that you've chosen to use to make things easier. It could be a process like documentation that you've implemented, anything like that.
I have in my office, and it's actually behind me. I have all my books labeled like food program, childcare certificate attendance, all that. So there's that. But we also have a program that we use. It's called ProCare for all of our billing and for our enrollments and things like that, and communicating with parents. That has really helped a lot. Yeah. So that was one of the things I said when I got over here, I'm getting that program. Because my previous person, the job where I worked, they wouldn't allow it. They're like, you're just a small center. We're not going to pay for that. I don't care if you're a small center or not. You need to do something that's going to make your job easier. Mm-hmm. And this makes my job easier. The other thing that we do, we use a food program called CareMove. Instead of going through the state and doing all that on my own, I go through this sponsor and I do some of the paperwork here, but they do the major paperwork for me. I don't have that headache. So if we ever were to get audited by the state, it goes through them.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds great. So you decided, regardless of size, I'm going to have ProCare help me with the enrollments and the attendance and, all that kind of stuff. Yes. And CareMove, it sounded like you said, is the sponsor who you've chosen to work with, who helps with that food program process. Yeah, right. The amount of paperwork and compliance that's required is heavy. And if you're also being there on a day-to-day, managing staff, making sure all of the different things are done, it can be a lot. So it sounds like you found the right system and flow for you to make sure that, you still have obviously some things to do within the food program portion, but you're doing your part in delegating the rest.
Yes. It just makes your life a lot easier, because then you're able to put that extra time in other things that you need to for the center.
Absolutely. Yes. That's great. So what are you most proud of when you look at what you've built? Not just financially, even. It can even be culturally, maybe.
Well, to be honest with you, I'm most proud of I've been here for 10 years when I didn't think I would be here past the year. Because I'm not going to lie. It was a very big struggle the first 3 years here. Okay. And that kind of stuff. And like I told you before, it's the financial part of it. But I am just very proud that we are still here. We still have a great reputation, and that we're growing strong. When I got here, we only had 3 classrooms. We now have 6. Wow. That's how much we've grown. So that lets me know I'm doing something right.
Absolutely. That is definitely something to be proud of. I think that first 3 years, like you said, let's call it chaos, the financial chaos, the first year, first couple of years, is more so because it's a learning experience. And like you said, you were at 3 classrooms at the time. Are you in the same building that you were in then?
We're in the same building. Yes. Same building. Yes, so we leased the building. Yeah.
Yeah. So that building at the time, if you were at 3 classrooms, it wasn't able to support maybe as much as 6 classrooms can. So now you're, finally seeing as the years go on, like the fuller you are, the more smoothly things can probably go.
Right.
Absolutely. So what is next for you and your center? Like, are there any growth goals, expansions, innovations that you're dreaming about?
Okay, this is going to sound really weird as a business person. I don't mind expanding, but I probably won't expand because I can't be in both places.
Okay.
And the atmosphere that I have made here, I can't make sure that it's the same atmosphere there. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm not trying to say that it's just because of me. Okay. But I have certain values that I have for here. I have a certain way I do things here, and it works. And it would be really, really hard to make sure that it's there.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is really hard to duplicate what you've created, especially if you're having to be split between multiple places at the same time.
Well, and I think my feeling for that is I've worked for centers that have done that. They've branched out and they've lost sight of their mission by doing that, because then they get those dollar signs and it's all about money.
Mm.
And I think when you get to that point and you're only about money, you might as well hang it up, because you're not going to last long. Because you need that compassion. You need to have that value. You need to have that mission driven to help people. That's where it is. It's money will come if you're doing what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, the future looks like we're here, we're able to maybe expand here and just increase some of the slots here, make it a nice place for people to want to come and call it good.
Yeah, that's great. I recently heard another owner saying not to split centers, but to get bigger at the one you're at. So if you have the ability to expand it, like add another classroom or, get into another space there, to do that as opposed to opening a separate location, because like you said, it splits you
Because
up.
I'm here.
Yes, exactly. It splits you up. And it's hard to keep that. I call it control, but it's not necessarily the micromanaged portion of control, but things can get a little bit more chaotic. And I think a lot of the multi location center owners that I've talked to or that we work with have had that struggle of, oh, shoot, now I have this director here who does this really well and this one over here who is struggling with this or that, and trying to kind of manage that, being away from the business in that way, but also carrying that culture from that initial center that was your baby and trying to replicate it somewhere else is harder, much, much, much harder to do, even if the first one can run without you now.
Yes. And there is room here on this property that we could expand.
Got it.
We just have to get there financially.
Sure.
And when we do, that would be awesome. Those are some of the goals that I could see happen.
Yep. Absolutely. I could see that. And like I said, it's hard to replicate the culture and things that you've built. And it's kind of like starting over. It's like doing those first 3 years over again when you open a new center, because now you've got to tell people about you're here. Hey, we're here in this new location. And do we have enough kids in that area that are going to move about, and come here? And all of those first 5 year struggles happen all over again in a new place. Yeah.
And then, if you lease a space, they want so much money for that space, but they don't include like utilities and things like that. And then you're just like, okay, so you're wanting to charge me $11,000 a month, and then I still have to pay for all of this other stuff. I'm going to have to make sure I have this many kids all the time, and that kind of stuff to make it work. So, Yeah.
And it sounds like by that, you kind of know your numbers, like the data, like this is how many kids, like you said, this is how many kids I'm going to need at minimum just to cover the rent portion, not even the air conditioning going out in the middle of the summer or something like that, that absolutely happens as well. So good. So if a brand new center owner came to you today, someone who wants to build a meaningful business without burning out, what would you tell them?
I would say take it one day at a time, and be prepared for the struggle. Okay. Because it's not all peaches and cream. There's going to be struggle, but know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel if you keep going, in that kind of stuff, and don't sweat the small stuff. Just take it one day at a time, start small, and then just move forward. I think that's one of the things that a lot of businesses do is they look at that big picture and they feel that everything has to start big. No, you got to start small. If you start small, you can expand, you can grow. Yes. Yeah.
That's great advice. Great advice.
And also to look to your peers, look to other people, ask questions, use them. There are resources out there. There are people that will help you. And if you ever need an ear, someone to talk to, call someone, call me, and we'll be there for you.
That's great. Yeah, that community portion matters a lot. Being
It
able to
does.
go and see from that you're not alone in this. And that's one of the reasons that I love doing this podcast is because we get to talk to owners, and a lot of you say the same things, especially about those early stages in the early years. And so is someone listening who's new or just getting into it, knowing that you're not alone, that you aren't incompetent because you haven't figured something out or because things are difficult. Business owners go through this. It's part of the process. Penny, are there any like conferences? I know there's a lot of different conferences or resources out there. Are there any that you've kind of invested in over the years that have really maybe made a difference for you?
Well, we're part of United Way, so that's really nice too. And so we do a lot of training through them. We do their RTS programs. So we have a literacy coach here also.
That's great.
So they help in all of our classrooms. So that is really, really nice. NACI is awesome. And you get a lot of administration training. That would be one thing that I would tell a business owner, an administrator in a childcare center, make sure you're getting that training too. Don't just leave it for your teachers. You need to do it. You need to keep up on everything, because even with my DHS rules and regulations, there will be times where I'll pull out that book and I'll read it again. Even though I've been doing this, I've been here physically for 10 years, that don't mean I know that book.
Right.
I have to read it because I might have missed something. And then, or I might have read it differently and like, oh, wait, no, that's not what that said. This is what it said. This is what it meant. Yes. Always make sure that you're up on that. Go to your council meetings and things like that. Make sure you're heard in that. Don't be afraid of your governor. Don't be afraid of your mayor.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That's the way to do it. And I think it's important that you're saying that about like rereading and making sure that you know what the rules are behind all of the licensing things and that type of thing. I know when we spoke before, I think I caught you on a professional development day. Tell me a little bit about that. I know you guys kind of did take a pause with you and your team. Can you give me a little bit of insight about that?
We did. We had 2 days off. Part of it was we did some United Way training. Every staff member got to stay home and they did some Zoom training. So we got credit for that. But then that Friday, we actually went to a conference with United Way, and it was called Ignite Conference. And it was awesome because they have different classes that you can do. They have stuff for supervisors. They had stuff for teachers, stuff for literacy. And it's nice and it's really cool because then educators can go meet other educators and teachers, and they can collaborate together. Like, oh, this is what we do. Oh, this is what we do in a classroom, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's really important to do those kind of things because you want not the parents, but your teachers to feel valued, and you feel that they feel valued because you're willing to take those days and close so that they can get the professional development that they need. Because every state is different. In our state, like our educators, they're supposed to get 12 hours a year.
Okay.
I require 24.
Oh, okay.
Just because I feel it's important to go above and beyond. I don't tell them what trainings to get. I let them do it. Now, if I feel that I found one that I think maybe this person might need a little training, I'll coach them. I'll say, you know what? I found this training. I'm not saying you got to do it, but I think it would really benefit you. You'll get a lot from it. And normally they will do that. But I have to say, when we did this conference this time, everybody took something that was really important to them. They took trainings that they could really use in their classroom. And I thought, that is really cool because that shows me they're listening. You want to make sure that your staff are listening to you too. But they show you in certain ways that, hey, I got it. I got this.
Especially if you've communicated kind of or they've communicated to you kind of what their struggles are, and then having that training time and space available to kind of cater their journey, if you will, of where they want to go in terms of, okay, this is something like maybe classroom management is something that I'm really struggling with. And so I want to be able to take that path to kind of see how I can deal with difficult behaviors, or, that kind of thing. That makes complete sense. And I'm so glad that
and like with the state, they get on my nerves sometimes. They want all the teachers to have degrees. Okay. And I get that. But I am also going to say a degree doesn't make a teacher. It's a piece of paper. Okay. I worked in a classroom under a teacher that was licensed. She had a license to be the pre-K teacher. We did all the work. She got all the credit. Not cool, in that kind of stuff. So yes, I'm here to help my teachers get their degrees and do those kind of things. And I'm on for it, but I wait until they're ready. I'm not going to push them, in that kind of stuff. When they're ready, they'll succeed. If you push them, they're not going to succeed.
That's true. That is true. And I know here in Tennessee, the state had implemented I think it's called the wages program, where they're trying to put, like you said, they're offering incentives the higher in your education that you go, where they'll kind of pay for some things for you, or kind of give bonuses based off of that. And that's one incentive, but
it is one incentive, but you have to be in school classes. I was reading it yesterday. It's really funny you said that, and that kind of stuff. And I do have one employee that has never went to school, but they've been in the profession for a long time. Why can't they benefit from that?
Right.
Why do they have to? Now we have tons of training. Why don't you use some of that? Because it's state certified training that they're getting. It just may not be from a college,
right?
In those kind of things. So I do feel that there's a lot of work out there that needs to be changed.
Yeah.
But with that said, there is a new program that is coming out where teachers can get a degree within 3 years.
Okay.
And so it's with the Workforce and Lipscomb University. And so for the first year, they take some classes, they get their CDA. The second year, they do some more college classes. The third year, by the time they're done, they get their bachelor's degree. And then they could be certified to work in the K-3 classroom. It's pretty neat. Yeah.
That is pretty neat. Yeah. I saw some of that going, I kind of saw some stuff on social media about that, and that it was going, this is, I think, the first year that they've done that, started that program, like with their first enrollment, kids enrolled, I say kids, but first people enrolled. So I'm assuming it'll be a really good program as time goes on, and kind of maybe an apprenticeship sort of a thing where they're kind of working. An apprenticeship, yes, because they'll work here. And then what you can do is you can say, okay, after you graduate, you need to stay here for at least a couple of years. Right.
Because there's a lot that we as directors and owners would have to do to help them get there, and that kind of stuff. But it's the employee themselves don't have to pay nothing. They get all this. And it's awesome. I wish I would have had that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that kind of stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, it seems like for the person who's driven, it's a great opportunity to be able to get your degree paid for, and also have pretty much guaranteed employment at the end of it, which is a big deal.
Because, it's easy to tell someone, go out there and get that degree. You need to go get that. Well, wait a minute. When am I going to get that degree? I have to work, and we do have a program here that you can get your education that way by taking classes through them. But you have to go there to take those classes. The problem is it's during our work hours.
Yeah.
How are they going to live?
Right.
So it's nice to see that there's people that are actually looking outside the box now. Yeah,
that's great. And I think it pushes everything forward. You get high quality staff that come in that you were able to co-work with while they're going through the program. They get the experience that they need without the financial headache, but then they can also work through the program at the same time and be able to earn a living while they're getting their degree.
That's correct.
That's great. Well, Penny, thank you so much for sharing your journey with me today. Your story is the perfect example of how your purpose can eventually fuel the profit, because you said it took about 3 years to get there, but they can kind of coexist. And when there's structure and systems, like what you said, you've got the belief behind it as well. And then you've got the support behind the scenes with your family. You're really listening and thinking like, this is working. I've built something great. And so I appreciate you for sharing your journey, especially also giving advice to other owners who are just getting started, who are wanting to get into the industry. Thank you for being transparent and open about that as well. And I will really appreciate you coming through. Is there anything that you would like to offer? Is there any way that people can get in touch with you or where they can reach you?
You are more than welcome to call me, because I love being a model and I love helping people, because that's what my passion is too, is helping others. And so you can look us up at 15th Avenue North Learning Academy. That's our website. Or you can give me a call at 615-647-7174. That's our business. And we would love to hear from you. And I'm here anytime anybody needs help. And don't give up. You got it. It's going to struggle. You're going to struggle and struggle and struggle, but don't give up. Because if you don't give up, you will make it.
Absolutely.
You really, really will. And there's people out there that will help you. There is. And rely on your support staff.
Absolutely. Thank you again for sharing your journey. Thank you for even giving you just gave out your phone number. Thank you for giving out your phone number, even just for people if they want to be able to reach out, because having that community and having that support makes all the difference.
Yes.
So hope you have a great afternoon, and thanks again for coming in with me.